Okay, sounds like it cleared up. All right, so I've been covering this story a lot. I talked about it last night on my radio show, the African History Network show, on 9:10 a.m. the Superstation, Sunday, September 23rd, 2018. And I talked about how going back to Tuesday, September 18th, Dallas Police Department, Dallas Police Police Chief um, Renee Hall said that she could not fire Amber Guyger and that she did not want to interfere with the investigation that's taking place now. Okay. So this morning, there was an internal investigation and Amber Guyger was fired. All right. So we're going to look at the reporting from WFAA, Channel 8, the ABC affiliate. Also, we'll look at the reporting from the Star Telegram. So I've read about 6 or 7 different news sources since this story broke about 2 hours ago. All right. We know on the Dallas Police Department Twitter page, Police Chief Renee Hall posted a quick press release, okay, announcing the firing of Officer Amber Guyger. Okay, so we're going to cover all this here in a short period of time. All right, everybody, share this broadcast on your Facebook page. Invite your friends to tune in also, okay? And go back and watch the show that I did Sunday. I went deep into this, dealt with new developments that took place this past week, and separated the fact from the fiction. Number one, there's still no motive in the killing. Even lead family attorney Lee Merritt said late last week, there's still no motive in the killing. We still don't know why the killing took place. 2, there was no relationship between them. He said they reviewed September 16th, 2018 on the Sunday edition of AM Joy and Read on MSNBC. You can go and you can watch the video, MSNBC.com. He said they reviewed lead attorney Lee Merritt, family attorney, for the Botham Jean family, said they reviewed text messages. He said they reviewed cell phone records. He interviewed Botham's friends. He interviewed Botham's family. They said there was no relationship. So there still are a lot of unanswered questions here. Okay. So let's look at the reporting from WFAA Channel 8, the ABC affiliate in Dallas. And their reporting has been updated about 8 times. Because I've been going through looking at this and they keep updating it. So I've just been waiting to report on this. Okay, so Dallas police officer Amber Guyger fired over Botham Jean shooting is the article from WFAA Channel 8. Their website is WFAA.com. They have the second best reporting I've seen on this story. The first best reporting comes from the Dallas Morning News, dallasnews.com. Okay. Amber Guyger, the Dallas police officer who faces a manslaughter charge in the shooting death of 26-year-old Botham Jean, has been fired. The police department announced in a news release Monday morning. Now, Dallas Police Chief Renee Hall, who is from Detroit, she was with the Detroit Police Department, and she was hired as the police chief down in Dallas. She's been in that position for a year. She fired 30-year-old Amber Guyger after a very short internal affairs investigation and hearing Monday morning, sources told WFAA. The news release said the investigation concluded that Amber Guyger, quote, engaged in adverse conduct, end quote, engaged in adverse conduct when she was arrested for manslaughter charges. She was arrested on Sunday evening around 7 p.m., September 9th, okay, for the fatal shooting of Botham Shem Jean at his Southside Flats apartment on the night of Thursday, September 6th, that took place around 10 p.m. The news release said Officer Guyger was terminated for her actions. Now, on the Twitter page for the Dallas Police Department, it's Dallas Police Department on Twitter, or Dallas PD. Chief Renee Hall, the press release says, Chief Renee Hall, her first name is Ulisha, she's a sister from Detroit. Chief Renee Hall, letter U, terminates officer. Dallas Police Chief Renee Hall terminated police officer Amber Guyger, number 10702, during a hearing held September 24, 2018. An internal affairs investigation concluded that on September 9th, that was when she was arrested by the Texas Rangers. September 9th, 2018, Officer Guyger, number 10702, engaged in adverse conduct when she was arrested for manslaughter. Officer Guyger was terminated for her actions. She was hired in November 2013 and was assigned to the Southeast Patrol Division. Under civil service rules, Officer Guyger has the right to appeal her discipline. Under civil service rules, Officer Guyger has the right to appeal her discipline. Now, as I said on my show last night, I figured this would come. So I figured it would, based upon the statements made by Chief Hall on Tuesday, September 18th, and also based upon statements made by Chief of Staff Thomas Taylor early this week, I figured it would come maybe after she was indicted or something like that. I didn't know it was going to come the next day, okay? I want to look at the article from DallasNews.com from September 19th. Dallas Police Chief says she can't yet fire Amber Guyger, but it's been done before, because there was a lot of controversy over the statements that Police Chief Renee Hall made Tuesday, September 18th at a town hall meeting, when she explained why she could not fire the police chief. She said that it had to do with state laws and local laws, and she did not want to launch an investigation and interfere with the investigation that's taking place. However, the internal affairs investigation is not a criminal investigation. It's a different investigation than the criminal investigation that's being handled now by the Dallas County Prosecutor's Office. The prosecutor is Faith Johnson. So if we look at the reporting from DallasNews.com, it says, and if Police Chief Renee Hall follows the department's standard practices, it could be months before a decision about Guyger's employment is made. Although she was placed on leave immediately and turned herself in on September 9th to face a manslaughter charge, a ruling on whether to fire her will be on hold until the criminal investigation is complete, Police Chief of Staff Thomas Taylor said last week. So this was September 19th, basically, between the 18th and the 19th that these statements were made. Okay, so something happened between then and this morning. And he went on to say, Police Chief said at the town hall meeting, quote, "I can't do that because there are both local, state, and federal laws that prohibit me from taking action." Okay. She did not specify what those laws were that she was referring to, but she did say that she would provide those laws to WFAA Channel 8. Now, while it's typical for Dallas police to wait for a criminal indictment, because it can take 2 to 3 months or so, or up to a year, based upon past circumstances, for her to be indicted. Now, when we look at probably one of the most recent instances was handled by the Dallas County prosecutor, was the case of Officer Roy Oliver, who in April 2017 shot and killed Jordan Edwards, who was a 15-year-old African-American teenager. So he was just sentenced to 15 years in prison, maybe about 3 weeks ago. It took about 3.5 months for his case to go to the grand jury to be indicted. Okay, so while it's typical for Dallas police to wait for a criminal indictment of an officer before firing them, Police Chief Renee Hall has the power to bypass normal disciplinary procedures to make an immediate employment decision. Now, the department's general orders, which lay out the policies under which Dallas police operate, say that Police Chief Renee Hall can circumvent normal procedures if she, quote, deems it necessary to preserve the integrity of the department, end quote. Now, Police Chief of Staff Thomas Taylor said in the article from DallasNews.com on September 19th, which was Wednesday, he said it was updated Wednesday. He said it's typical, what the article says, it's typical for the Dallas Police Department to wait for a criminal investigation to conclude before undertaking an internal investigation. That would be an internal affairs investigation, basically. And in this case, the Texas Rangers asked the police to wait to start the internal investigation, Police Chief of Staff Thomas Taylor said. He said this last week. Without the internal investigation, we won't even speculate or speak toward Amber's employment status, he said. Okay. And he said on Wednesday, this past Wednesday, which was September 19th, he said the Texas Rangers criminal investigation would not be considered complete until the court proceedings are complete. He said the chief of police would not circumvent procedure to make an employment decision regarding Guyger without an internal investigation. So something happened between Wednesday, September 19th, and Monday, September 24th. I don't know if the Texas Rangers said, okay, it's all right to go ahead and launch your internal investigation. It was a very short internal investigation. If we look at the reporting from if we go back to WFAA, then I'll go to the Star Telegram, because the Star Telegram has a really good article on this as well. I've looked at Washington Post, TheHill.com. I didn't see one from New York Times, Vox.com. I looked at about 8 different news sources on this firing. Okay, so the internal affairs investigation centered only on whether Officer Guyger had been arrested, sources said. Okay. Guyger, who had surrendered her badge and gun when she was put on administrative leave after the shooting, had the department headquarters by noon Monday. Okay, well, she was at department headquarters by noon Monday. Under civil service rules, Guyger can appeal the firing. The criminal investigation in this case is ongoing. We know it's being handled by the prosecutor's office. Okay, so all right, let's go. I want to go to the reporting from the Star Telegram also, because they have a response from attorneys for the Botham Shem Jean family. We know also Mayor Mike Rawlings has given a response as well. That's one of the reasons why WFAA had to keep updating their article. Dallas Mayor Mike Rawlings, who's a white male, said he agreed that Amber Guyger's firing was the, quote, right decision in the interest of justice for Botham Shem Jean. On Twitter, it's Mike_Rawlings, RAWLINGS, if you want to follow him on Twitter. He said, I have heard the calls for this action from many, including the John family, and I agree that this is the right decision in the interest of justice for Botham Jean and the citizens of Dallas. The swift termination of any officer who engages in misconduct that leads to the loss of innocent life is essential if the Dallas Police Department is to gain and maintain the public trust. I know Chief Hall agrees with me on this, and I appreciate her leadership. Once again, she made the right call. So we know there was a lot. So there have been protests pretty much every day, some type of protest pretty much every day since the killing of Botham Jean. We know there's been a lot of outcry over why Amber Guyger was still employed. Okay, because we know in both affidavits, one from the Dallas Police Department and the other from the Texas Rangers, both taken September 7th, we know she admitted to killing him. Okay, admitted going to basically the wrong apartment. And once again, we still do not know motive. I've read now over 60 articles, because I read at least 8 this morning, really more than 8 from different news sources. So I've read over 60 articles dealing with this case. I've read both affidavits, both arrest warrants. I've seen numerous press conferences and things like this. And Lee Merritt, the lead attorney, knows more than me. He says we still don't know a motive. Okay, so there's still a lot of unanswered questions. All right, so I want to go. We'll come to some of your questions and comments in just a minute here. Hey, also, African-American business owners, hey, be sure to post the name of your business and your website here on the thread of the broadcast. and we'll tell you how you can advertise with the African History Network on the podcast of our radio shows as well. Okay. All right. Okay, so Star Telegram has a really good article as well. Dallas police officer fired in wake of Botham Jean shooting. Dallas police officer fired in wake of Botham Jean shooting. And in stories like this, very fluid stories, a lot of changes, a lot of twists, a lot of articles being written, you're going to usually find, at least I find, I've been doing radio 8 years, I've been covering stories like this for 8 years, you're going to find better reporting from the local news sources than national news sources, because the local news sources, one, are on the ground, two, they can interview people face to face, three, they're focused on local stories, so it's maybe about 80% local, 20% national, whereas Washington Post, New York Times, USA Today, they're focusing on a lot of national stories. All right. Okay, so if we look at Star Telegram, we look at the response from the attorneys. So attorneys for the family do not believe that Amber Guyger's firing will have an impact on the criminal investigation, according to Daryl Washington, one of the lawyers representing the family. So usually at the press conference, you see Attorney Lee Merritt, who's the lead attorney. You see Attorney Benjamin Crump, who many people are familiar with. And contrary to popular belief, people say, oh, he lost his Trayvon Martin case. Oh, he lost this case. Oh, he lost that case. He's not a prosecutor. He has nothing to do with prosecution, strategies that the prosecutors use, witnesses they call, evidence they present. He is the attorney for the family. He handles civil lawsuits. He deals with media coverage. He works to try to get the facts out as best as they know it on behalf of the victim. He is not the prosecuting attorney. Okay. All right. So, attorneys for the family do not believe that Amber Guyger's firing will have any impact on the criminal investigation, according to Daryl Washington, one of the lawyers representing the family. However, Daryl Washington said it was a decision that should have come earlier. He said, quote, unfortunately, people had to be in outrage about this situation before the chief made the decision we thought should have been made a week or so ago, end quote. But so the article goes on to say, but it's also the belief of Botham Jean's family attorneys that Chief Renee Hall has properly vetted the decision to fire Amber Guyger, and it will not impact the criminal matter, an opinion apparently shared by Dallas Mayor Mike Rawlings, who issued a statement, and I just read his statement as well. Okay, so something happened between last Tuesday, Wednesday, especially Wednesday, with the statements from Police Chief of Staff Thomas Taylor, and Monday morning, something happened. Maybe they got the go-ahead from the Texas Rangers. Maybe they reviewed the law. Something happened. Okay, so I'm still trying to find out what happened. Okay. Oh, the other thing was, I talked about this last night, so be sure to go back our Facebook fan page, The African History Network. Watch the show I did last night. You see me in the studios at 9, 10 a.m. the Superstation. I'm on Sundays, 9 p.m. to 11 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, the African History Network show. I dealt with basically what happened this past week, and I gave an update on this case. We also talked about the fake Willie Lynch letter of 1712, because we dealt with some internet hoaxes. The fake Willie Lynch letter 1712, because Willie Lynch never historically existed. And the internet hoax that the black John Hanson was president, because he was not. There were two John Hansons. Go back and watch that. We'll get that up on audio podcast today. You can listen to my audio podcast, all of our shows, almost 900 episodes at AfricanHistoryNetwork.com, and also on our YouTube channel, Michael on YouTube. Okay, something very important took place this past week in this case. DallasNews.com had this article. Well, I talked about last night how information about the 911 call was released unofficially by someone in the Dallas Police Department. So there's a leak in the Dallas Police Department. And Attorney Lee Merritt has called for Police Chief Renee Hall to launch an investigation into who's leaking information to the media within the Dallas Police Department. Okay, so look at the article from WFAA.com, which deals with I'm so sorry 911 call reveals confusion after Dallas cop kills Botham Jean. And this is someone within the Dallas Police Department who asked for anonymity because they were not authorized to speak on the subject. Well, if you're not authorized to speak on the subject, and this is an ongoing investigation, a criminal investigation, why are you speaking? Okay, so it's something going on. But the other one from DallasNews.com, why apartment manager really visited Botham Jean's home before he was killed by Amber Guyger. And see, this is because of things like this, and because they still don't have a motive. So some people say, oh, well, she should be charged with first-degree murder. Okay, first-degree murder is premeditated. It implies intent. When you're trying to argue this before the grand jury, it's hard to argue intent, and you don't even have a theory for a motive. There is no theory for a motive. They're still trying to find out why this happened. Okay? So this is why you have to have a thorough investigation. These things take time. So in this one here from DallasNews.com, it deals with why apartment managers really visited Botham Jean's apartment. Okay, so we have been told, and Attorney Lee Merritt said this, okay, that it was because of a noise complaint targeting his apartment earlier that day. That's what we were told. That's what he said. He said that on CNN a couple weeks ago. He said that on AM Joy, September 16th, right? After Botham Jean was shot and killed in his Dallas home by an off-duty police officer, attorneys and law enforcement officials said there was a noise complaint targeting his apartment earlier that day. But it turns out it wasn't loud music that brought leasing office employees to Botham Jean's apartment hours before he was shot at the Southside Flats, an attorney for John's family said Wednesday. Rather, it was the smell of marijuana, not a noise complaint. And they ultimately determined that it was not NOT, was not coming from Botham Jean's home, according to Attorney Lee Merritt. This is why you have to have an investigation. This is why you can't jump to conclusions. People trying to manufacture a relationship that doesn't exist. Okay? Somebody took a photo from Botham Jean's Instagram account. He was with 3 white women. At least one of them was one of his co-workers. All of them may have been co-workers. At least one was one of his co-workers at PricewaterhouseCoopers. Somebody circled the picture of the woman on the end and said, that's Amber Guyger. That's the woman that killed him. She's not Amber Guyger. She's not even a police officer. She's a co-worker at PricewaterhouseCoopers. A spokeswoman for PricewaterhouseCoopers, PwC, verified this. This is why you have to have investigations, okay, to separate the facts from the fiction. Okay, so we come to find out it was not a noise complaint. It was a complaint about the smell of marijuana, but it was determined marijuana was not coming from his apartment. Okay, so we know that the search warrant from the Dallas Police Department, and keep in mind, his apartment was the scene of the crime because, as I talked about last night, because no one else lived there who could give consent to search and remove things, because they're doing investigations so that they remove evidence. They have to have a search warrant. Otherwise, it could be thrown out in court because it was obtained improperly. Okay, so police who searched John's apartment after the shooting seized a small amount of marijuana, which was documented in a search warrant released last week. It's unclear to whom the drugs belong to or how they got there. So we still don't know that. They were just there. We don't know whether his, was it somebody, did it belong to him? Did it belong to somebody else? How they get there? Did somebody forget them, left them behind? Don't know. Now, the day of the shooting, employees from the Southside Flats leasing office knocked on Botham Jean's door saying there had been a noise complaint, Attorney Lee Merritt said. Okay. Botham Jean told his girlfriend what happened and that he was offended by the women's visit because he had just gotten home from work at PricewaterhouseCoopers and was not playing music, said a law enforcement official who is not authorized to address the case publicly and spoke on condition of anonymity. So why are you speaking if you ain't supposed to be speaking? Like law enforcement, Attorney Lee Merritt has previously said there was a noise complaint about Botham Jean's apartment the day he was shot, but Merritt said this past Wednesday, September 19th, that he learned that was not true, which once again is why you need a thorough investigation. Merritt said there had not been a noise complaint against Botham Jean in the 2 months Amber Guyger lived in the building. So apparently Amber Guyger was new in the building. She only lived there 2 months. We know she has since moved out. She was also receiving death threats, a number of things. So we know she has since moved out. Now, asked about noise complaints, a spokeswoman for the Southside Flats corporate ownership says she could not comment on the ongoing investigation. The Johns family attorney also shed new light Wednesday on how he spent his final night. He was watching the Philadelphia Eagles play the Atlanta Falcons. He was a big football fan. A thunderstorm passing through Philadelphia delayed the game by 45 minutes. So the game was still on when Amber Guyger arrived at his door about 10 p.m. Okay. Now, so read that article from Dallas Morning News, dallasnews.com. It's entitled, Why Apartment Managers Really Visited Botham Jean's Home Before He Was Killed by Amber Guyger. And on page 4, it says, no search warrants have been released for Guyger's home or car. It's possible she consented to the search, and in that case, a warrant would not be required, as Dallas Morning News has reported before. Police took Guyger's blood to test for alcohol and drugs. The test was still pending as of Wednesday, September 19th. Botham Jean's autopsy will include similar tests. Full autopsy results can take 6 to 8 weeks, okay? All right, so, okay, so you can read the rest of that. And then, I think the last thing I'm going to give you this other article to reference, because I have about over 60 articles on this case. We know that they got a search warrant to download data from the electronic door locks. Dallas News reported on that. There was another article, and that was from last week, which dealt with the issue with the search warrant. See, here's the arrest warrant from the Texas Rangers, and what attached with the affidavit. Attached with that affidavit. Here is the affidavit from the Dallas Police Department. So I've got all this stuff. All right, now there was something very important. Okay, here. This is what I want you to research. WFAA Channel 8, second best reporting I've seen on this. Okay, Dallas News, Dallas Morning News is number one. WFAA Channel 8, ABC affiliate in Dallas is number 2. What police seized from Botham Jean's apartment after fatal shooting? What police seized from Botham Jean's apartment after fatal shooting? And I'll post these links here on the thread of the broadcast. Something I want you to research and hone in on, because it answers a whole lot of questions that people had. The search warrant was written by a Dallas police detective several hours after the shooting. That's the first search warrant, before the Texas Rangers took over the investigation of the case. Texas Rangers took over September 7th, Friday, September 7th. A search warrant obtained by WFAA on Monday initially showed 2 items seized from John's apartment, a laptop and cell phone. Is that what I want? Okay. Second page. In cases where a person cannot voluntarily give consent for a search, the law requires investigators to obtain a search warrant. Otherwise, investigators would risk that the evidence that was obtained would later be thrown out by a judge. Nobody else lived in the apartment with Botham Jean. So since he's dead, no one is living can give consent to search the apartment. You have to have a search warrant, okay? Since Botham Jean was the only person who lived in the apartment, law enforcement was able to search the entire apartment because they had a search warrant, okay? That's page 2 of that article. That's very important. That deals with understanding the law. Once again, that's WFAA Channel 8. What police seized from Botham Jean's apartment after fatal shooting. That is from September 13th, okay? So it's very important. This all deals with understanding law and things like that, okay? Unfortunately, two things African Americans don't understand, many of us, is history, 1, and 2 of the law. All right. Okay, let's go to some of your comments. Oh, and African American business owners, hey, post the name of your business here on the thread of the broadcast and your website address. Okay, and email us at customerservice@africanhistorynetwork.com, customerservice@africanhistorynetwork.com. You can advertise your business on the audio podcast of our shows and our broadcasts. We're on 6 different podcast platforms: iTunes, Blog Talk Radio, Castbox, Acast, FM Player, and TuneIn.com. Okay, just search for the African History Network show on any of those platforms. Our current promotion going on until Wednesday, get 50% off your first month. Okay, you can reach thousands of potential customers on a weekly basis. We put your 60-second commercial or less, 60-second or less, into the audio podcast of our radio shows, of our broadcast. And if you don't have a commercial, we can record one for you. All right, so let's go to some of your comments here. We got Jade Arundel, who's holding it down. So Jade is like, you see like the videos I post dealing with the protests in Brooklyn, New York, Flatbush Avenue in Brooklyn, dealing with the nail salon there where the African-American women were assaulted, okay? So the nail salon where they were assaulted, that's been shut down. There's a sister salon nearby owned by the same owner, and there have been massive protests taking place at that one, you know, Asian owned, to get that shut down. So Jade Arundel has been on the ground, keeping me informed of what's going on. We just posted a video of hers today because the first location, the location that's been shut down, they had a lot of their information displayed outside, and has been vandalized, things like this, right? So there's a concerted effort to deter African Americans from fighting back, from protesting injustice like this taking place, okay? All right, and then also, hey, those in Philadelphia, I'll be in Philadelphia this weekend, Friday the 28th through Sunday, September 30th at the All Black National Convention. Visit allblacknationalconvention.com for more information. I'll be speaking there on Saturday, and I'll be a vendor also. So visit allblacknational.com for more information, okay? All right, and that's organized by Dr. Boyce Watkins. Dr. Claude Anderson will be there. I'll be there. A lot of people, so come on out. Okay, what can the community at large do to bring Guyger to justice? I'm not sure. I mean, you don't have to arrest her. They know where she is. She's already been arrested. She's out on bail. This is being investigated by the Dallas County Prosecutor's Office. If anybody has information, they want to reach out to Attorney Lee Merritt. He's on Twitter, Attorney Lee Merritt, if you are a witness or something like that. You know, This is being handled by the Dallas County Prosecutor's Office. In situations like this, personally to me, there's really no need. Personally to me, there's no need to put pressure on the prosecutor, because you don't want the prosecutor to make mistakes. We have to understand it can take between 2 months to a year to go before the grand jury. Now, personally, I don't think it's going to take a year, but if you have information, if you are a witness, if you heard something, you need to contact the prosecutor's office, because they still don't have a motive. Okay? They still don't know why this took place. All right. So this is not like Trayvon Martin, where you had to have national protests to even get George Zimmerman arrested, because the prosecutor, I forgot the prosecutor's name, start with a C. She was voted out of office. Thank God. A few years later, she was voted out of office, because prosecutors, that's an elected position. People are starting to realize more how politics impacts every aspect of their life, and people are starting to run qualified candidates for the prosecutor's office and vote these people out of office, the ones that are not doing their job. Some prosecutors are, but a lot of them are not doing their jobs. So this is not like Trayvon Martin. You had to have nationwide protests just to get George Zimmerman arrested. This is not that. She was arrested 3 days later. Okay, so let's see. Tanisha Thompson said, I can understand searching the entire apartment, but why would there are items taken from the apartment that has nothing to do with the crime? Well, you don't know that they didn't have anything to do with the crime. You don't know. A lot of those items were around the body. So, I mean, you don't know that they didn't have anything to do with the crime. Okay. Sean said, I'm a voiceover artist if anyone needs one. Okay. So post the name of your business and your website, Sean. Carol, you just said a mouthful. Disorganized rhetoric, nothing. What are you referring to, Carol? Nothing I do is disorganized. I've been doing this 8 years. I know what I'm doing. Nothing I do is disorganized. Now, you may not understand it. What I say may go outside the circumference of your own awareness, but what I do is not disorganized. Let's see. Delencia said, that's crazy. She shot him in his apartment. His rights were violated. She's a murderer, and they have a warrant to go into his apartment like he did something wrong. Did you get the explanation, Delencia? It was a crime scene. So anytime there's a crime scene, there are going to be things recovered from the crime scene. They had to have, we don't understand law. And this is one of the ways that African Americans get caught up, not understanding the law. And some people say, oh, it's white man's law. They designed the law to trap us. Well, if they designed the law to trap you, shouldn't we know the law better than they know the law? I carry a copy of the Constitution with me wherever I go. Oh, yes, I do. People that know me know this. If the law is designed to trap you, shouldn't we know where all the pitfalls are? Shouldn't we know where the booby traps are so we don't get caught up in it? Shouldn't we know the law better than they know the law? This deals with the principle that I deal with called political self-defense. And you disarm them of that weapon and use it against them. Go read this is why I do this research. We don't understand law. It's a crime scene. There was no one else who lived there who can give consent to search the apartment and recover evidence in the crime. So they had to have a search warrant. Once again, in case anybody came in late, in case you missed it, in case your internet was buffering or what have you, look at the article from WFAA Channel 8. Which one was that? That was from last week. I think it was September 13th. Warrants issued to gather more evidence. That wasn't it. It was one of these here from WFAA. I got it right here. Okay. What police seized from Botham Jean's apartment after fatal shooting? what police seized. Read this article. You got it. These articles I give you, you got to go read this stuff. Okay? You got to go read this stuff. What police seized from Botham Jean's apartment after fatal shooting. This is from September 13th, updated September 14th, WFAA.com, channel 8. In cases where a person cannot voluntarily give consent for a search, in a coma, dead, whatever, the law requires investigators to obtain a search warrant. It doesn't mean they did something wrong. This was the scene of the crime. This is where he's killed. There's evidence there that has to be recovered. Otherwise, investigators would risk that the evidence was obtained would later be thrown out by a judge because it was not obtained legally. Therefore, without a search warrant, evidence that the prosecutor obtains, the defense could argue it was obtained illegally, is thrown out. She walks, everybody's mad. You have to understand law. Since Botham Jean was the only person who lived in the apartment, the law enforcement was able to search the entire apartment because of the search warrant. Because of the search warrant. Otherwise, they would not be able to search. Okay, doesn't mean he did anything wrong. This is the scene of the crime. So when you're trying to reconstruct what happened, you're trying to figure out what happens. What do you have to do? You have to go to the scene of the crime and recover evidence. That's what happened. All right. Voices.com to hear. Okay, so Sean said you can go to voices.com to hear my audio portfolio. All right, he's a voiceover artist. No webpage currently is being worked on. He put his email address there, smm100booking@gmail.com. All right. Willie, Clarence Holman Jr. said, hello, welcome. Hello from West Memphis, Arkansas. Okay, all right, good. Did the officer work part-time for the complex? Now, I haven't heard anything about her working part-time anywhere. Working part-time for the complex. No, not familiar with that, Deborah. Angela Corey, that's her name, Angela Corey. Yeah, Angela Corey was the state attorney in I think she was a state attorney in Florida. Okay. Was she the attorney general, or she's the county prosecutor? But she was the one who was handling the case of not just Trayvon Martin. Okay, it was her. It was her office that prosecuted that case reluctantly because they did not want to prosecute that case. But also Marissa Alexander, who was the African American woman who claimed stand your ground. She got into an altercation with her ex-husband, I think it was, or estranged husband. She said she fired a warning shot, like at the ceiling. Okay, she got a few years in prison behind this. It was Angela Corey who prosecuted her, and I remember Angela Corey was interviewed on the Tom Joyner Morning Show, and she had a real nasty ass attitude. Okay. Sounded like she didn't want to be there. Sounded like they were bothering her by interviewing her about this case that drew national attention. Okay. And she said, you know, this wasn't a stand your ground issue and things like this, right? Well, she was voted out of office. Good. Okay. Because people like that should not be prosecutors. Good. She was voted out of office. But African Americans had to organize to do this. Same thing they did with Anita Alvarez in the Chicago area, who was the Cook County State's attorney. They put support behind Kim Fox, African American female attorney, voted her out because she was Anita Alvarez who sat on the Laquan McDonald tape, and it took her 400 days to bring charges against Officer Jason Van Dyke, and you got all the evidence right there on video. It took 400 days to bring charges. They voted her out of office. See, in different cities, African Americans will start realizing, wait a second, you know, politics is the legal distribution of scarce wealth, power, and resources. And the writing of laws, statutes, ordinances, amendments, and treaties, their adoption, interpretation, and enforcement. And almost all the problems we're complaining about are the side effects of bad public policies. So the people who are writing these bad public policies, we need to vote their asses out of office. Because in many cases, we have the votes to do this. So people are starting to realize it. Now, not enough people in some cases. Some of us are still asleep. But some of us are waking up, starting, wait, you know what? You know, Republicans keep trying to suppress our vote. If our vote didn't matter, why would they keep trying to suppress our vote? It must be something to this. It doesn't mean economics does not play a part. It means you have to have a synthesis of African history and culture, which gives you your VIPs, your values, your interests, and your principles. That's your foundation. Your economic empowerment and your political empowerment. So you have to have a synthesis of all three. All right. Darlene said the red doormat was enough for her to see that it was not her apartment. Yeah, under normal circumstances, yeah, you would think that. I'm watching the rest of this process earnestly, Willie said. Penny said, no doubts we have the votes. Yeah, in many of these instances, African Americans have the votes. They're either too lazy or apathetic, suffer from low self-esteem, don't understand the impact of politics. It's just like in St. Louis back in 2016. I think it was 2016. What was her name? Tashara Jones. She was a politician there in St. Louis. She was running for mayor. She lost the vote by 888 votes to a white councilwoman who was 64 years old. And what happened is that you had three African, so the root.com had an article about this. This is how I found out about it. Dr. Jason Johnson wrote an article for the root.com. See, this is a perfect example of what happens when you have some politicians who are self-centered, okay? So what happened was you had three African-American male politicians who stayed in the race to the end, basically. Didn't really have a chance of winning. They split the African-American vote. So her name, yeah, Tashara Jones. Man, I have a good memory. Yeah, Tashara Jones. Okay, this is from 2017, March 8th, 2017, because I have it bookmarked. I have thousands upon thousands of articles bookmarked. Dr. Jason Johnson, political editor for theroot.com. Name of this article, pay attention to this. Name of this article is Black Male Ego Sinks Black Woman Magic in St. Louis Election. Tashara Jones loses mayor's race by 888 votes. So Tashara Jones at the time was, what was her position? She was a incumbent there, and I forgot what her position was, okay? But when it came time to run, when it came down to the wire, the African-American women said that they all needed to work together and put their support behind the best candidate. And they picked her, okay? The African-American men didn't do this. You had three that stayed in the race to the end. They split the African-American vote four ways, and a 64-year-old white woman named, what's her name? Lyda Cruiser. 64-year-old white woman who was a white alderman there in St. Louis, she became mayor. Now, African-Americans were 67% of the population in St. Louis. But because of some of their ego, now the sisters had the right, sisters were trying to save black people once again. They had the right mindset. They said, hold on, we need to throw all our support behind the best candidate. Some of the brothers wanted to beat their chest and stay in it to the end, in it to win it, and they lost it all. So St. Louis has never had a female mayor, and the top two candidates were Lyda Cruz, and 64-year-old white alderman, with the endorsement of the problematic St. Louis Police Department, and Tashara Jones, a 44-year-old Black incumbent city treasurer who was active with Black Lives Matter since the Ferguson, Missouri uprising. Okay, and I want to get to the point where they talked about oh, here's something else important that he said in this article. He said that Tashara Jones, like Marilyn Mosby in Baltimore and Nina Turner in Cleveland, is part of a vanguard of Black female activist politicians who have arisen in the last several years to challenge the racial and gender status quo of major cities in America. St. Louis, despite being a majority Black city, has remained primarily in the hands of the white minority because, now pay attention to this, because whites have crossed party lines to coalesce around whatever white candidate is running for mayor. And city districts have been gerrymandered to diffuse Black political power. See, we don't understand. They're playing grandmaster level chess and we're playing beginner's checkers and don't even understand all the rules to checkers. He said that a white minority population will cross party lines and coalesce around that one white candidate who is running for mayor. And then you have city districts that have been gerrymandered to diffuse political power. But the gerrymandering, the redistricting, comes from the state legislature. And the districts are drawn every 10 years by the political party that's in charge in the state legislature. Okay? So opportunities for Black political advancement are fewer and far between. And this year's mayoral race was one of those chances, was one of those chances for them to actually do something, make a difference. So she said, okay, so when Jones, whose prominence as a St. Louis City treasurer skyrocketed because of her outspoken activism post-Ferguson, Missouri, jumped into the race, conventional wisdom said that the top 4 Black candidates would cancel one another out, allowing Lyda Krewson to win, the 64-year-old white woman. As Tashara Jones gained in the polls, especially after eithering the St. Louis Post-Dispatch, the newspaper there, for systematic racism, and once she got the powerful endorsement of former Missouri Secretary of State Jason Kander, one of the other Black candidates, all of the men needed to go. It was the only chance for St. Louis Black residents to finally get progressive representation, but it did not happen. Tashara Jones, in an interview with the St. Louis Dispatch, said, quote, "I'm going to be honest. The men decided to stay in this race because of their ego. And where are we now? We still have the status quo candidate that's going to be in that office for the next 4 years," end quote. Okay. So she goes on to say, "I'm really disappointed that ego, patriarchy, and sexism won the day yesterday," she told TheRoot.com. She said, quote, "When all the Black candidates met before the filing closed, so before the last day to file to run for mayor, pay attention to this, when all the Black candidates met before filing closed, only the Black women decided to work together and support each other. When will we come together for the common good? Even if all the men in the race got together and decided to go with one male candidate, we would have had a much different outcome." End quote. Now, this is what this sister's saying. She said the sisters understood that they had to come together and work together. But the men were dealing with ego and patriarchy, sexism, things like that. They didn't want to drop out. They didn't want to work together. So a 64-year-old white woman became the mayor of St. Louis, which is 67% African American. Makes no sense whatsoever. Read this full article here. This is from theroot.com. See, this is one of the thousands of articles in my archives. Okay. We'll post the link here on the thread of the broadcast. This is from theroot.com. I ain't a big fan of the Root, but they do have some good articles here and there. Dr. Jason Johnson, I've been reading the Root for years. And Dr. Jason Johnson has some good articles. Black male ego sinks black woman magic in St. Louis election. Tashara Jones loses mayor's race by 888 votes. Just the weed smokers alone in St. Louis could have put this sister over the top. Just the weed smokers alone. Okay? All right. Let's go back to some of your comments. And African-American business owners, hey, post the name of your business here on the thread of the broadcast. Okay? And your website address also. And email us at customerservice@africanhistorynetwork.com. You can advertise with the African History Network. We reach thousands of people on a weekly basis with the audio podcasts of our radio shows and our broadcasts. I'm on six different podcast platforms, Blog Talk Radio, iTunes, Castbox, Acast, FM Player, and TuneIn.com that I know of, okay? And we get on Blog Talk alone in the first 1 to 2 weeks, we get between 4,000 to 8,000 listens. Okay. All right. VictoryPeopleMovement.com is Jade Arundale's website. Ty Delton Harris said we must turn out in record numbers. Midterm elections, November 6, 2018. Midterm elections only about 40 days away. You see how you see what's going on with Kavanaugh, with Brett Kavanaugh. Republicans are fighting tooth and nail to try to get this guy confirmed, because during the 2016 midterm election, this is something we didn't understand. And I was doing radio 5 days a week. I was doing national radio 5 days a week then. You can go back and listen to those podcasts that are archived at AfricanHistoryNetwork.com from the 2016 election. Republicans were saying this is about the Supreme Court. When it came down to looking like Trump was going to win the nomination, Republicans fell in line, majority of them, and supported Trump. Even though they didn't like Trump, they said this is about the Supreme Court. This is about the federal court. They said this is about overturning Roe versus Wade. They understood that this was about law. It wasn't about personality. Okay? See, African Americans didn't understand that. They got caught up in personality. Okay? They got caught up in Russian bots posting fake news articles and ads on social media. Okay? 3,500 fake articles and ads and things like this promoted on Facebook alone reached about 130 million people. These were ads taken out by Russians. $100,000. There's been numerous articles dealing with this autopsy. What happened? Okay, this is what I was trying to tell people. Dude, this is about policy. This ain't about personality. This is about policy. We ain't understand that. And so now Trump has reversed over 100 policies President Obama has had in place, and unfortunately, many of us don't even know this stuff exists. Okay. Why would you believe votes will be counted in the first place? You're saying the black male candidates cause the problem feeds into a divide and conquer. You go read that article and you tell me what you find out. You go read that article and you tell me what you find out. Okay? It's simple math. You go read that article and you tell me what you find out. If the sister was the best candidate, she still would have the backing of the people, as she may have, only we never used to call splitting the vote. Same damn thing just happened here in Detroit with the 13th congressional district with John Conyers' seat. Now, first of all, John Conyers sat in that damn office for 50 years and he ain't groomed a successor. That's a problem. Okay? You have 4 African-American candidates right here in Detroit. 4 African-American candidates. Coleman Alexander Young II, You had Councilwoman Brenda Jones. You had a state representative in the state legislature. You had 4 African-American candidates. They split the goddamn vote in the 13th Congressional District, which is in Detroit. And who wins? An Arab woman, Rashida Tlaib, who used to be in the state legislature. African-Americans split the debt, still haven't learned. Split the vote. Okay? So a lot of this is just common sense. If you realize, wait a second, if you know how to count, and you say, you know what? If all these people stay in a race and you got one white woman, then what's going to happen is we're going to split the vote. Some of y'all need to drop out and put your support behind the best candidate. Okay? Do you want to run or do we want one of us to win? See, we're not thinking. We're not thinking, and this happens time after time. Mayoral race down in Ferguson, Missouri. You had an African-American female councilwoman who ran against James, I forgot James' last name, the mayor, who was the mayor when Mike Brown was killed and everybody was complaining about. She lost by 500 votes, right? Ferguson is 67% African-American. A lot of people didn't turn out to vote. Just the weed smokers alone in Ferguson could have put that sister over the top. Okay? So my thing is like, wait a second, hold on. You complain about them, but when it comes time to show up to vote them out of office, many times you don't show up. You'll show up to stand in line to play your money, to pay your money to play the lottery. You'll show up there and don't win. And when you don't win, you keep going back day after day spending your money. You don't say, oh, the lottery's rigged. But oftentimes when it comes time to vote and vote these people out of office who you keep calling the radio shows every day complaining about, you don't show up. So many of us don't understand the relationship between conditions and policies. And policies are written by politicians. Some of us starting to realize that, but not enough realize that. And we don't realize we have the votes to vote these people out of office and punish them for disrespecting us and mistreating us. Paul said, I still say who counted the votes. Can you honestly say we are in the room in all these instances? Okay. All right. Let's see. If the vote didn't match, so Paul, following your logic, then there would be no need for voter suppression because they're not going to count the votes. That don't even make sense. Why were there 868 fewer polling places in the 2016 election cycle? Read the article from thenation.com by Ari Berman. Why did 14 new states have new voter ID laws in the 2016 election? See, we are taking ourselves out because of lack of knowledge. Why did they use the cross-checking system in over 20 states to wipe 1.1 million people off the voter rolls in the 2016 election cycle? Chris Kobach, Secretary of State of Kansas, was basically the one who championed the cross-checking system. We don't even understand the cross-checking system. Okay? And it's because of stupid ass thinking that we're taking ourselves out and don't even understand this. Trump won Michigan, Wisconsin, and Pennsylvania by 78,000 votes. Trump won Michigan by 10,704 votes. Do you realize 54,000 people were knocked off the voter rolls in Michigan because of the cross-checking system? See, we don't even understand that we don't understand. And it's like, come on. You have the power to vote these people out of office that you keep complaining about, and you don't do it. We have to do better than that. Okay? We have to do better than that. And most people, and unfortunately, see, most of our people don't know about the cross-checking system. That's the problem. We don't know that we don't know. It's just like you had a whole lot of people talking about the Electoral College, and most of us don't even understand how the Electoral College works. I've done lectures on all this stuff. I've researched this. This is how I know what I'm talking about. So during the 2016 election, I saw dozens of interviews with Donald Trump supporters. Also, I saw over 100 campaign speeches and interviews that Trump did during the campaign. So in all the interviews that I saw, dozens of interviews in focus groups, at inside rallies, outside rallies, campaign rallies, people said, we're voting for Donald Trump. Okay. Some of them didn't know what date the vote was taking place. They said, we're voting for Donald Trump. Some of them hadn't voted in years. They said, we're voting for Donald Trump. Some people weren't registered to vote. They said, we're voting for Donald Trump. Some people didn't know what a polling place was. They said, we're voting for Donald Trump. None of them said, we don't choose the president, Electoral College choose the president. None of them said that. They said, we're voting for Donald Trump. You go on social media, all of a sudden, all these black people are constitutional law experts. And they're talking about the Electoral College and can't even explain to you how the Electoral College works. So here's a pop quiz for you, right? So Trump became president-elect the morning of November 9th, 2016, because the election was 2008. No, the election was November 8th, 2016. And then they called the election the morning of November 9th, 2016, early in the morning. He became president-elect. So how did he become president-elect when the Electoral College does not vote until the first Monday following the second Wednesday in December? Who can explain that to me? Electoral College does not vote until the first Monday following the second Wednesday in December. It fell on December 19th. So how did he become president-elect the morning of November 9th? See, we keep circulating a bunch of nonsense that we don't understand. Because when people come tell me that nonsense, then I ask them questions. Because I've researched the history of the Electoral College, going back to Alexander Hamilton and the Philadelphia Convention in 1787 with the drafting of the Constitution. So I know the questions to ask. And I can listen to certain things people say. I can tell they have no clue what the hell they're talking about. Most of them can't even tell you how many electors there are in the Electoral College. Or what determines how many electoral votes a particular state gets. How is that determined? So then when I ask them questions, then they realize, uh-oh, we made a mistake. And if African Americans have voted at the same percentage in 2016 that they voted in 2012, Donald Trump would not be president. And many of us still haven't figured that out. All right. Yeah, you said I know some black people that voted for 45, and many of them are regretting it because they didn't think he was going to be this bad. I told you this fool was an idiot. I told you how dumb he was. I told you he was crazy. I did the fact checking on him, fact checking on his statements. I told you all this. I was talking about, I read the CrowdStrike report, the Fidelis report. I told you it was Russian intelligence behind the hacking of the DNC and also the attempted hacking of the Hillary Clinton campaign, all that stuff. I dealt with all that during the election. Okay, Jade said, that's what I want to know. He wasn't elected until electoral votes were counted. So why did Hillary concede? Because it's math. He got the first candidate to reach 270 electoral college votes wins. They become president-elect. The votes are not cast by the Electoral College. They weren't cast until December 19th, and then they were certified. Okay, but the math is done. See, you cannot win the Electoral College votes associated with a state without winning the popular votes in that state, because this is why if you go back to November 8th, 2016, they're showing you the Electoral College map, and they're showing you how many Electoral College votes are associated with each state. So when one wins a state, you see the count go up. Okay? See, Republicans understood what African Americans don't understand. It's not the overall popular vote that matters, it's the popular vote per state. This is why Republicans engaged in rampant voter suppression in swing states. We still don't get this. And they work to suppress the African American vote. Okay? You had the Russian hacking, all that, yeah. But Republicans were engaged in this. Donald Trump was telling his supporters to go into certain areas and become poll watchers. On his website, you could register to become a poll watcher. He wasn't telling them to become poll watchers in their own communities. He was telling them to go into other communities, okay? And this is dealing with voter intimidation. There were lawsuits against the Trump campaign, against Republicans, allegations of them violating the 1871 Ku Klux Klan Act, which is an anti-intimidation act, voter suppression allegations, things like this. There were a number of lawsuits that Democrats filed against Republicans and the Trump campaign. Okay? So the question I ask people, if the African-American vote didn't matter, why did Republicans work so hard to suppress the vote? They feared our vote more than we valued it and understood our vote. This is what takes this is what happens when you don't know that you don't know. All right. So here's one of the numerous articles. Now, see, I've done lectures on this. I've done lectures dealing with the history of the Electoral College and the Three-Fifths Compromise in 1787, because contrary to popular belief, Article 1, Section 2, Clause 3 of the U.S. Constitution does not say we were three-fifths of a human being. That's a total misunderstanding of history, total misunderstanding of the Constitution. But here's one article that you can read. This is from nation.com, dealing with there are 868 fewer places to vote in 2016 because the Supreme Court gutted the Voting Rights Act. So the Supreme Court, Shelby County versus Holder, 2013 Supreme Court decision gutted Section 5 of the Voting Rights Act. Section 5 dealt with the oversight, because we don't understand the importance of the Voting Rights Act. Section 5 of the Voting Rights Act was gutted, which dealt with oversight. And it was oversight of those states that had a history of suppressing the African-American vote and putting impediments in the way of us voting. Poll taxes, literacy tests, things like this, okay? And prior to Shelby County versus Holder, to make any changes in the times that polling places are going to be open, or say, for instance, how many weeks you're going to have early voting, the location of polling places, they had to get approval from a federal judge. Well, when Section 5 was gutted, okay, Shelby County versus Holder, and Shelby County is in Alabama. Alabama is where Jefferson Beauregard Sessions III, who's now your Attorney General, he was the senator of Alabama. When this verdict was handed down from the U.S. Supreme Court, he cheered the gutting of the Voting Rights Act because he's an old white supremacist, and he's against the Voting Rights Act in the first place, just like he's against the Civil Rights Act, the 64, in the first place, okay? So, see, this is how history and law and politics intersect. And unfortunately, we don't understand any of it for the most part. Most of us. So what happened then was that you had all these states that came out with these new voter ID laws, okay? Because they didn't have to get approval from a federal judge. So 2016 was the first presidential election in 50 years that you did not have the full weight or full power of the Voting Rights Act. And we didn't understand what was going on. Okay, so read that article in the nation.com. They have a number of good articles dealing with the 2016 election cycle, voter suppression, things like that, okay? You can, so How's everybody doing? Share this broadcast on your Facebook page. Invite your friends to tune in also, because you're not going to get this type of reporting other places, okay? If you like the type of information we share, you want to learn more about our history, etc., you can register for the online courses I teach. They're all on demand. You can watch as soon as you register. You can watch from around the world. We have a 10-course online bundle pack, which includes 10 of my online courses. I teach all of them. It's on sale $60, regularly $130. It includes ancient Kemet, the Moors, and the Ma'afa, understanding the transatlantic slave trade, what they didn't teach you in school. Understanding the transatlantic slave trade, what they didn't teach you in school. That is a 14-hour, 7-session online course that I teach. We deal with thousands of years of history. We deal with ancient Egypt. We deal with the Africans known as the Moors, who take the teachings from ancient Africa, from ancient Egypt into Europe and bring Europe out of the Dark Ages. We deal with things chronologically. Another presentation, another lecture that's in there is, or class I did, it's called African American Resistance in the Era of Donald Trump. Voter Suppression, Reparations, and How Elections Have Consequences. In that lecture, that's why I break all this stuff down, dealing with the voter suppression, what took place during the 2016 election. And then also there's one class I did dealing with the film Black Panther. So it's a 10-course online bundle pack on sale $60, regularly $130, okay? I'll come to the 3/5 compromise in just a minute, Paul. I think Paul asked a question about that. Then also, because I meant to tell you all this stuff earlier, I forgot. Also, if you want to support the African History Network, you can donate to the African History Network if you want to. PayPal.me, paypal.me/the AHN show. That helps us to keep doing research, stay on the air, pay the bills, helps when I have to travel to different events like the All Black National Convention, things like that, okay? And then also we have a Black Panther 8 digital download bundle pack, which includes 3 of my lectures dealing with the film Black Panther and 5 other lectures. One of them deals with the history of the Confederate monuments. These are digital downloads. These are digital downloads. The online courses, those are streaming, unlimited streaming. The Black Panther 8 digital download bundle pack are digital downloads. You can download them, keep them. The links are good for 7 days, but you can download them and keep them forever. All right. 3/5 compromise. 3/5 compromise of 1787 did not say, that's Article 1, Section 2, Clause 3 of the U.S. Constitution. It says, for the purpose of taxation and apportionment, that they will take the full count of free people, and they will count 3/5 of persons in bondage. They're talking about counting 3/5 of the population, not looking at someone as 3/5 of a human being. Apportionment deals with the process of determining how many seats in the House of Representatives a particular state will have. It's based upon population. So 1787, the spring of 1787, you have the Philadelphia Convention where they're debating the Constitution. And the what we call the southern states, they had a greater overall population when you counted the free people, basically white people, and you add to that the number of enslaved Africans they had. A lot of the northern states had a larger population of free people, okay? So the northern states are saying, well, wait a second. If you count the full population of enslaved Africans, then that's going to give the southern states a dominance in the House of Representatives. They'll just be able to push through whatever bills they want in the House of Representatives, okay? They're going back and forth trying to figure out, how do you count the population of enslaved Africans? Some people are saying, well, let's count half of the population. So for instance, it's the state, because at the time, the state of Virginia had the largest population in the state. And they had 12 Electoral College votes associated with the state of Virginia. So say hypothetically, the state of Virginia had 100,000 enslaved Africans. Instead of counting the full population of 100,000, adding that to the free population, they would count 3/5, which would be 60,000, okay? It's not saying they were 3/5 of a human being. You have to understand the history behind the words. And also one of the things that helps is to read the Federalist Papers, because the Federalist Papers were essays that the framers of the Constitution wrote, and they sent these essays to local newspapers to get people to support different parts of the Constitution and to get them to get the state legislatures to ratify, because the Constitution did not only had to be voted on by the signers, you know, and not only signed by the signers and approved by them, but it had to pass 3/4 of the state legislatures by a 2/3 majority vote. It had to be ratified. The Constitution had to be ratified also. Okay, so the Federalist Papers gives background history on different parts of the Constitution and what the intent was. Okay, so the 3/5 compromise was dealing with how do we determine how many seats in the House of Representatives a particular state will have, and how do we count that enslaved population. Now, the count is going to be corrected by the 14th Amendment, Section 2 of the 14th Amendment of 1868, which deals with counting the full population. Because we know it's the 13th Amendment that ends chattel slavery, ratified December 6, 1865, after the Civil War ends. It's adopted December 18th, 1865. It's going to be the 14th Amendment of 1868. It's going to give African American citizenship, because we were stripped of nationality, stripped of our rights, things like this. So, and the foundation of the 14th Amendment was the Civil Rights Act of 1866. Not 1964. Civil rights goes back to 1865 and 1866. Civil rights did not start in 64 or in 57 or in 1947. Civil rights goes back to 1865 and 1866. And civil rights was only for African Americans. It wasn't for midgets, humpbacks, immigrants, Hispanics, things that, you know, civil rights was only for Black people. There's an article from theroot.com that deals with the 3/5 compromise. I also have a lecture. We have all this at our website, AfricanHistoryNetwork.com. I have a lecture dealing with the history of the 3/5 compromise. And I dealt with the 3/5 compromise and the Electoral College, because they work together to give Southern states political dominance. Okay. We have that at AfricanHistoryNetwork.com. It's also in the bundle pack. And I deal with it in the online courses also. I deal with that in the online courses as well. If you need me to post any of those links again, let me know. We have all this information at AfricanHistoryNetwork.com as well. Here's an article from theroot.com by Dr. Paul Finkelman. Really good article. 3/5 clause, why its taint persists. Because I even hear lawyers saying, oh, the Constitution said we're 3/5 of a human being. I'm like, what the hell law school did you graduate from? I didn't even go to law school, and I know better than that. I've heard attorneys say that. I'm like, what are you talking about? No, it did not. That's not what it said. Okay. So we just posted that link there from theroot.com. Toya Austin, how you doing, Toya? Let's go to some more of your comments and have to get out of here. Bernadine Jenkins said, arrest her. Are you talking about Amber Guyger, who was arrested September 9th and made bail? Is that who you're talking about, Bernadine, or are you talking about somebody else? Let me know. Rocco Millian, he said, yes, I agree. We have all the power collectively. We can collectively make rig elections irrelevant. The rulers will not even rig if we turn out. Yeah, if you think it's rigged, see, when you have an overwhelming turnout, that makes it harder for them to steal an election also. See, sometimes because of insecurities we have, and actually a fear. See, some of us actually have a fear of winning, a fear of succeeding, because then you'll be expected to continue to succeed. So they say, oh, okay, you have a huge turnout for an election here. Okay, so you're going to be expected to do it from now on. And that takes away certain excuses. Yes, white supremacy and racism exist. I know that better than most people because I've studied the history of that. Okay, so then what do you do about it? Okay, and some of our people are really afraid to succeed. Okay, see, this is why, okay, Bernadine says sorry, she posted accidentally. So Bernadine knows that she was arrested. I just want everybody to know that. Bernadine knows that. She said she posted accidentally. Okay. All right. I was talking to one of my teachers, Professor James Small, one day. And it's Small, S-M-A-L-L, not S-M-A-L-L-S. And he said, it seems like many of our people have put it something like an eternal need to protest, an eternal need to protest. And he said that the reason why is, he said, because when it comes time to actually take action, to really make some gains or to really strike a mighty blow against your opponent or your oppressor, we don't do it, but we'll continue to protest. And this is why I asked people, I said, do you really want to win or do you just want to keep protesting? Now, mass protests have their purpose, don't get me wrong. I'm all for mass protests as part of a strategy, an overall strategy, but mass protests are not the strategy in general. And this is why I don't use the term the struggle continues, because these different terms that we use become psychological. And they get into your subconscious, and your thoughts create feelings, your feelings create actions and behaviors, your actions and behaviors create results. So what happened is if you keep talking about the struggle continues. Okay, now I understand we're fighting the fight of our ancestors and things like this, but understand what I'm saying. If you say the struggle continues, then your focus is on struggling and continuing to struggle and not on winning. To continue to struggle, you need an opponent or adversary to struggle against. So since your focus is on continuing to struggle as opposed to winning, and winning more implies finality and defeating an opponent, then when it comes time to take that opponent out, to vote them out of office, to put them out of business, oftentimes we don't do it because our mind is geared towards continuing to struggle with an adversary. This is why I don't use that type of terminology, okay? Because when you're focused on winning, the information you take in, the strategies you lay out, and your actions are going to be in line with the goal of winning. If your goal is to continue to struggle, the information you take in, the strategies you lay out, and your actions and behaviors are going to be in line with the end goal, which is to continue to struggle. All right, Felicia, how you doing? Felicia Sanise Jackson, I agree about protest versus action and productivity. Yeah, it's struggling versus winning. Darlene said, how long to struggle? Okay. All right. Okay, so I explained 3/5 compromise, misinterpreted. And at our website, one of those bundle packs on our website, I have my lecture dealing with 3/5 compromise. You can buy it by itself. It's $10 if you want to get it. I go in depth into the history of the Electoral College, 3/5 compromise, all that stuff. But I have them in a bundle pack also, one of those bundle packs. I can't remember. I have 40 of my lectures on DVD. I can't remember. Let's see here. Okay, so though who is here in Philadelphia, or who is here going to the All Black National Convention that's in Philadelphia this weekend? Okay, I will be in Philadelphia Friday, September 28th through September 30th. At the All Black National Convention that's organized by Dr. Boyce Watkins and his group. I'm on a panel discussion that Saturday dealing with why we must buy black. I'll be a vendor Saturday and Sunday. You can come by my vendor table. I have my DVD lectures there. You can talk to me also. Dr. Claude Anderson, who you see me interview Dr. Claude Anderson here on our Facebook fan page. He'll be there. He's speaking. Kenny Gamble of the legendary songwriting team of Gamble and Huff. He'll be there as well. He's speaking. So come on out. Visit allblacknationalconvention.com, allblacknationalconvention.com. Now, it's not sponsored by white corporations or white people. Okay, so they have to charge admission. Okay, you pay admission to go see Beyonce. You pay admission to go see Jay-Z or Lil Kim. I mean, not Lil Kim, Nicki Minaj or Drake. Okay, but oftentimes when nobody watching here, but oftentimes when it comes time to invest and spend money in yourself, we want to complain. You know, this is why I asked the question, why do Negroes buy what they want, beg for what they need? Nobody here, but you know somebody who I'm talking. You know somebody who this description fits. Okay. So many of us, because of low self-esteem, because we're suffering from the side effects of white supremacy, we're going through a 12-step recovery process, 12-step process recovering from the effects of white supremacy, because we have not reclaimed African history and culture. Many of us don't think we are worth investing in, and we buy what we want and beg for what we need. So we expect white corporations to finance events like this and get mad when it's not free. They spend thousands of dollars to rent the venue and fly people out and pay for this. It costs money to do that. Okay? If you don't think so, you try doing that. See what happens. See, I've been involved with the International Detroit Black Expo here in Detroit, and we had 50,000 people the first year. I know what goes in. I know what goes into organizing something like that. I've been involved in that before. That stuff is not free. Okay. All right. We'll get a couple more of your comments and I have to get out of here. You missed my explanation, Paul. I went through and explained everything. You missed my explanation. Dealing with three-fifths compromise. Read Article 1, Section 2, Clause 3 of the U.S. Constitution. Also, I posted this article here from theroot.com that goes through and explains it. I went through and explained the three-fifths compromise and explained how people misinterpret it. So I don't know what happened. Yeah, three-fifths compromise wasn't involved in the Dred Scott decision in 1857. That's really a misunderstanding. The three-fifths compromise dealt with taxation and apportionment. But also keep in mind that three-fifths compromise, the way the count for apportionment to determine how many seats in the House of Representatives is counted, that was corrected by the 14th Amendment, by Section 2 of the 14th Amendment of 1868. So when you look up something historical, like if you go to loc.gov, Library of Congress's website, you read the Constitution there, or you read the Constitution in books, and they deal with the three-fifths compromise. They'll tell you that was corrected by Section 2 of the 14th Amendment. Toya, you have midterms? Okay. I thought you meant midterm elections, but you have midterms as in you're in college. All right. Okay, look. Let me see. Hold on. What hotel is good? Renee said, what hotel is good to stay in Philadelphia? The conference hotel, I think, is the Wyndham or something like that. I'm not staying there. I'm staying at I'm at a Holiday Inn in New Jersey, like 5 or 6 miles away. Because when I booked my hotel, I couldn't book like the 3 nights there. They didn't have availability. So I may stay at the Holiday Inn one night and see if I can get at the Wyndham the other nights. I think it's called the Wyndham. Let me see. It's all black. Okay, allblacknationalconvention.com. But at the on their website, they have the conference hotel there. Let me see something. Okay, they have the itinerary here as well. So it starts Thursday. I'm getting in Friday. Depends upon what's going on. May not get there to Saturday, but I'm getting there. I should get there Friday. Yeah, the Wyndham Hotel. It's right on the homepage of the website. You scroll down. You have the information. Okay. Darlene said in Pennsylvania still can register to vote until October 6, 2018. If you have not registered, okay, good. That's good to know. Website, okay. Yeah, so it looks like the there's no more vacancies at the Wyndham as of right now. So people may cancel later, you know. So you may book somewhere else. Then when you get, because the event is taking place at the Wyndham as well, if I remember correctly. So usually a situation like that, when I get to the venue, I'll check at the hotel and see if they have any vacancies, see if they have any people who cancel. Because a lot of times people cancel also. All right. Okay. And then African-American business owners also, hey, be sure to email us at customerservice@africanhistorynetwork.com, customerservice@africanhistorynetwork.com. Find out how you can advertise with the African History Network. We put your 60-second commercial, 30 to 60-second commercial into the audio podcast of our radio shows and our broadcasts like this one right here. We're on 6 different podcast platforms: Blog Talk Radio, Castbox, iTunes, FM Player, TuneIn.com. We reach thousands of people on a weekly basis, and we have low cost advertising options for you to get new customers. So if you are, say, a bookstore owner, African American bookstore owner, if you are an author, if you sell clothing, you have an e-commerce store, you design websites, you do voiceovers, all different types of businesses, we can help you gain new business, new clients, okay? And our current promotion going on for a few more days, get 50% off your first month, okay? We can get you up and running today. Follow us here on Facebook, The African History Network, The African History Network as well on Facebook, and on my YouTube channel, Michael Imhotep, IMHOTEP. allblacknationalconvention.com, Renee. allblacknationalconvention.com. That's the website. All right. Hey, remember at the African History Network, we focus on educating, empowering, and inspiring people of African descent throughout the diaspora and around the world, because right knowledge corrects wrong behavior. What you do for yourself, what you do to yourself, and what you allow other people to do to you and get away with is based upon what you think about yourself. What you think about yourself is based upon what you have been taught about yourself. What you've been taught about yourself is based upon everything you've read, heard, and seen about yourself. Remember, right now is corrects wrong behavior. It's not over till we win. Wakanda forever. We'll talk to you next time. See you in Philadelphia.